Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to take you on a journey as we upgrade my pretty good custom Dragonborn from Skyrim into something much, much better. If that sounds interesting, then you know what to do. So first, let's take a look at what we are working with. This is my custom Dragonborn I made mostly using Krieger the Shunned from Savage Crucible. I also put a cloth goods tunic under there to kind of get the leather armor look. That is from Forge Knight. He's kitted out pretty well, like any player who has spent a lot of time in Skyrim. He's got a smaller axe, he's got a dagger for sneaking, he's got a nice enchanted two-handed sword. So pretty good loadout. What I would like to do is also find a place for a crossbow, from his time in the Dawn Guard. And I really want to upgrade his helmet because even though we do have something that's pretty close to the iconic helmet, the horns are just not quite nailing the silhouette, and that is what I want to change. I also want him to be able to be yelling. So right now he is using a head that I modified. Originally, this helmet was attached to... Whoop, I dropped it. Originally, this head was attached to this helmet. But as the actual creators of Savage Crucible mentioned, you can basically take any of their heads and put it in really hot water and just kind of peel the helmet off. So that's what I did. And I did the same with this helmet, which was originally this head. So by combining this bearded head and the kind of Dragonborn helmet, I got a pretty good look, and I was happy with it, but I've gotten a bit more confident in my customizing, so we are going to take it a step further. So the only Savage Crucible figure to come with two faceplates is Who-Man. So we have this neutral face and this angry face with like fiery eyes. Very cool. And what I would like to do is make both of these portraits able to wear this helmet, and I'd also like them both to be able to still have hair. And as you can see, because I'm fumbling with these, I've already heated them up and peeled them out of the hair pieces. So I've got two portraits, and I've got a helmet, and I've got hair. So the idea is that we will be able to interchange all four of these pieces to have a custom figure that actually has multiple faceplate options. Now this does look pretty good, but I really like my Dragonborn to have a beard, so we are also going to be sculpting a beard onto both of these faceplates, hopefully as consistently as possible. On top of that, I would like to add new horns to this helmet to give it that very like Dovahkiin silhouette. I'd also like to do a little bit of sculpting on this helmet to get it closer to the iconic helmet's look. So we'll be doing a little bit of an extension of the nose bridge and try to make a connection point between these two pieces. And maybe a trim a little bit off of here to get it just looking really, really close to the Dovahkiin helmet. For our sculpting, we are going to be using Apoxie. This will be my first time using it. I think I get the concept because I used to use green stuff in my Warhammer days. So let's start with the easiest part of this project. Let's snip these horns off. All right, good start. Those snipped right off. Next thing I want to do is make sure that our portraits both fit inside of this helmet perfectly. So first we have the basic one, which should fit just fine. So no modifications needed there. I believe our screaming head, though, might be a little bit more trouble. Yeah, we definitely have a little bit of a gap forming, and his forehead's too far out. And I believe that is because, yeah, we got different sizes going on here, so we are going to have to trim down this portrait to fit inside of the helmet, and hopefully still look good with hair on it. It's hair dryer time. All right, let's mark our area that we want to cut. Okay, here we go. Oh, that is actually going through really quick. Much easier than I expected. There we go. Oh, it's hollow. Sure, I'm doing this on camera. I cut a bit too much off there. All right, testing time. Let's see. Much better fit. Yeah, I definitely cut off a bit too much. Oh, I hope I didn't mess up the ball socket. Let's find out. So, close call there. We almost destroyed the ball socket. I was a little too hasty with my cuts there, but it still pops on well enough that you can still pose the head and it will stay on. So that's good news. So almost had a disaster there. Would have had to get another Who man to fix that. Let's see if the neutral hair fits. Yeah, that works. The reason we want the neutral hair and not the hair that goes with this piece is because this one has these openings for the ears. So if we wanted this to be like our normal hair piece, then when I put this one on, he's got no ears. That doesn't look great, right? This is going to be the hair that we trim down to have some hair coming out of the helmet. Okay, so we can interchange the helmet onto the neutral head and the yelling head. So have to be careful, but we're going to have to trim off a bit more to get that to fit. So I trimmed off too much on the back and not enough up top here. There we go. See if that'll do it. There we go. That's nice and snug. So this head is pushing the sides of the helmet out a bit because of the ears. And that might make sculpting our nose bridge and connecting it to these two sides a little tricky because it's going to be pushing the sides out. So let's see if we can make some room inside the helmet. More hair dryer. All right, we've added a bit of room in there. Let's see if that did the trick. There. That's looking pretty good. Okay, we've got our two heads, and you can swap them. We may need to do a little bit of reinforcing since falls out very easily, but honestly, you know, this is custom accessories and we're just going to be doing it quickly for photos, so I'm not too worried about these staying on perfectly and having that professional pop and swap feel. So this will be the hair that we use for his unhelmeted look. And this one here is what we are going to use to have a little bit of hair coming out of the helmet. All right, this is nice and soft now. Start with a very conservative cut. I'm sure I'm gonna need to trim some off of here, but we're just gonna start with this. Gotta be careful for that last bit. Oop, so your knife doesn't go flying. All right, I definitely will need to cut off more, but we're getting an idea. Yeah, getting there, getting closer. All right, this is looking pretty good. Sticks out just enough. And I've cut it down quite a bit so it's snug inside the helmet. Now I've got a choice to make. I could glue this in, but then we won't be able to do any photos of him holding his helmet because his hair will be sticking out. So that begs the question, can I find a way to only temporarily attach this and remove it conveniently? All right, I have a plan. Bear with me. That's the wrong tool. Okay. We are going to create our own little peg system. So first, we need to glue this little peg onto the hair. All right, I drilled a nice little socket into the hair piece, and we are now going to glue this peg in. Drill time. Close one, I can almost feel it. Not gonna lie, I feel like a genius. Look at that. Got the hair coming out. And you can just pop it out with this little peg, and you stick it in that hole that I drilled in there. Push it in there. You're good to go. How cool is that? I feel pretty cool. All right, let's see how it sits on an actual head. Nice. I feel unstoppable. All right. We have a removable helmet while still also having his hair sticking out. I think that's pretty cool. So he can also hold on to the helmet while he's got his regular hair on. Nice. Now we gotta clean this mess up. Time to add the horns. Let's see, so this peg is definitely too big for us to just drill into this hole. I think I'm going to have to cut this peg off and glue it on, and then we can use some epoxy to kind of fill in the gaps. X-Acto knife is working overtime today. Well, while these are still warm, I'm going to use these clamps to see if I can make them a bit more curvy. All right, it's time for the epoxy. Fun fact, I bought this exact thing like 12 years ago, thinking I was going to start doing customs, and then I never did it, and that stuff went bad, so this is brand new. I also bought these tools 10 years ago, and I'm finally going to use them. And we got to wear gloves for this. All right, the way this stuff works is you got to measure equal parts of equal parts, both components. Let's just start with a good, healthy amount. Go. Try not to contaminate the rest of it. Little concerned that one of them had a seal and one didn't. Seems about right. Now we're gonna knead this together until it is one glob. All right, here we are. First things first, let's see if we can reinforce this ball joint a bit. Start working on that. There we go, that should help. Can sand that down later, but I put the ball joint in there to make sure that it matches the actual shape of the socket. All right, let's make an attempt at that beard. So let's kind of start out by just kind of molding, getting our shape. All right, I twisted a little strip here to make the mustache. Please come off of my hand and go onto him. Not bad. That's looking pretty good. Just need some detail. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trying. Yeah, that's not too bad, right? Not bad at all. Let's see. These look like the same guy. I think this beard is a little bushier. Maybe we can add a little bit more to this one. And there you have it. This is looking pretty good for a first try, right? First time I've done anything like this, and I'm very pleased. Definitely will look better painted. All right, let's glue those horns on. I have sanded these down and just gonna get it on there, and then we'll use some epoxy to actually make the socket that these horns would have been inserted into for this helmet. There we go. That looks pretty good on its own, but we will make it better. So I've made a little noodle, and we will wrap that around. All right, we got that. Now what we're gonna do is use our tool to kind of feather this down. Dip it in some water. It's kind of make it look like it's part of the helmet. All right, that's looking pretty good. Do we attempt the nose piece? Yes. All right, I think that's looking pretty good. Symmetry is the bane of my existence with sculpting. I'm gonna fully repaint this, and I think it's gonna look great when I do. All right, it's been a few days, and this hardened way better than expected, and I took advantage of a Black Friday deal to sand it down, and now things are looking pretty good. Here's the helmet on the neutral head. And the hair. So with the yelling head, we can put the helmet on. It's a little finagling. There we go. And the hair works. All right, looking very good. Our next step is to maybe do a bit more sanding and cleanup, and then get these new parts painted. All right, painting is done. So I tried to make sure I would get things consistent between his beard and hair. It's funny, I got a bunch of browns out, thinking I would need to do a bunch of layering to get it to look really good, but really all I did was one layer of Corax white, and then mostly it was just this snakebite leather contrast paint. If you haven't tried the Citadel contrast paints, they're like magic. It's crazy how they just kind of fill in the shading for you. And then I also did kind of a little dry brush of a Talon sand on top, just to kind of give it a little bit more variety. And I'm very happy. All the hair pieces look pretty consistent. So here's the helmet hair, and here's the angry face. Let's scoot him back a little bit. And it's still drying, but here is the helmet, looking very nice and seamless now. The metal, I just did a full layer of Ironbreaker, and then I did a wash of Nuln Oil. And for the horns, I started with a white base and then used the Skeleton Horde contrast paint. And man, look at that. I mean, I can see the sculpting imperfections. You know, this is my first time working with epoxy, so there's some blemishes here and there, but I think overall it turned out looking like a pretty cool battle-worn helmet. Oh, I also clipped some parts of the helmet off to get it closer to how the actual Skyrim helmet looks. But yeah, I think this is looking pretty sweet. So I was kind of hoping to do more changes to his costume, but the more I messed around with stuff, the more I liked the simplicity of what I have here. What I did do is add a little bit of cloth goods back here. This is from, you guessed it, a Forge Knight set. And I thought this would be kind of cool because, you know, it's always nice to have some trailing cloth on a character, but also, in order to keep up with the theme of this being, you know, someone's character in Skyrim, you kind of end up specializing in every field by the end of it if you pursue all the factions. So I thought I would give him kind of the option to have more of like a thief look. Like that. If I wrap this around all the way, there we go. Thought that was pretty cool. So we have yet another cool appearance for this guy. All right, it's helmet test time. Take that hair off. We got our helmet hair installed. Hopefully it doesn't pop off while we're putting it on. I've been tweaking that quite a bit to try to make it as convenient as possible. A little bit of a traffic jam here. So what I figured out is that it's easier to put the head in first and then put the hair in. So I kind of fold it like a taco to get that peg lined up. Pop that in. There we go. Looking very cool. Now we pop the head on. Hopefully nothing falls off. Oh my god. Oh, that looks fantastic. Getting a little ahead of myself and chipping off some paint, so I'm going to fix that and get some varnish on there. And here's the yelling head looking equally awesome. So there you have it. I'm calling this guy done. I think this is my favorite custom I've ever made. I had a lot of fun learning how to use epoxy and playing with my new Dremel, and I pretty much hit all of my goals with this custom. He's got a very cool helmet that we can remove. He's got all the weapons that I would want him to have, so he can dual wield, which was new in the game. He's got a two-hander, always my favorite thing. He's got some awesome cloth goods that can make him more versatile, give him more of a sneaky look. I can even make him into a mage if I use those same cloth goods to make him a hood. And he's got the FUS ROH DAH yelling face. Between sculpting onto the helmet and that swappable hairpiece that you can plug into the helmet, this is even more complicated than my grapple gun from the Batman video. The only thing I couldn't figure out was what to do with the crossbow, where to store it on him, so I'm not going to worry about that, but I did find a Mythic Legions bow and quiver from one of the cheaper builder figures, and I'm going to try painting that up to see if I can make a bound bow. If I do that, I will show it off in a short or something in the future. But yeah, I am super happy with this custom. Thanks for going with me on this journey. All right, as always, let's get him back into the case. So this is my, blank slate protagonist display, I guess. We got the fluted armor, we got the Raging Wolf, we got Figma Tears of the Kingdom Link, and now joining them is the Dragonborn. I actually love that he's the only 7-inch figure in here. Gives him a very imposing look, especially standing next to Link. Very happy with this display and cannot wait for the Dragon's Dogma Arisen to join these guys. So once again, thank you so much for watching, going on this journey with me. I hope you'll come back for the next video. Bye.